Hello there, my name is Ross McKenzie and thank you for opening this video. It's very nice to have you here. In this presentation, I'd like to show you how you can do for your business what many of my other clients have done for theirs. And that is create and deliver a value proposition that allows you to stand out from your competition in 30 days. So what would that mean? Well, how would you feel about increasing your profitability by up to 400%? These things are possible. Why? Because I've done it. And using the strategies that have allowed me to deliver over $2 billion in career sales, I'm going to show you how you can do it too. So we're going to cover the processes that you need to adopt, and we're going to cover the things that you'll need to do to bring about the transformation in your value proposition. A value proposition that delivers the big returns. I'm a really lucky guy. I've been privileged to work with some amazing people, and it's been incredibly rewarding to help them to achieve the outcomes they decided that they wanted for themselves. I work with business angels, those wacky people who spot and support exciting young businesses. I've been engaged as a performance coach and a consultant to international sports management companies, helping the business to attract new clients and helping their athletes to perform to expectation. I've worked with business leaders who epitomize the very best of the word leader. People who have developed and led folks through combat, through war zones, through business, and in life. And I work with entrepreneurs that build businesses from the ground up, just like many of you. I work with the movers and the shakers in the investment world, those people that bring together global private equity to businesses that are poised to take off. And I've worked with world-class sports people as a performance coach to show them how to get access to more of the skills that they worked so hard to acquire when they need them. And that is in the heat of competition. Which brings us to who this program is for. The slide says that our program is for tech founders and CEOs, but of course, within that group of people, there's a wide range of aspiration and desire for the results that they want. Some reasons are philosophical, and some are operational. Many will be looking to exit their business within a given time frame in exchange for a healthy sum of money. Others will be wanting to make a personal as well as a professional impact on the world. Now, if any of the points that you see here are striking a chord or your eyes are drawn to them, then stick around and see what comes up. I think you'll decide pretty quickly if this is something that you want to explore further. Now, there are 4 points on this page, and I've been through all of them. Point 1 assumes that you're the boss, and that if you want to do something for your business, then you're in a position to do so. Point 2 is a situation that most companies find themselves in at some point, and it's not a great place to be. Competition here is tough. It's almost a lottery. Books. I've lost count of the number of books that I've bought and stopped reading over the years, stopped after just reading a few chapters. Now, these books were great at confirming problems that I already knew that I had, but not so great at providing the solutions to those problems. And putting a book down that you spent good money on is both frustrating and time-consuming. It's also a waste of trees. Now, I don't know about you, but I love signing off big commission checks. It's a sign of a successful business, and it leads to a happy and productive sales force. And you'll know that if your message isn't creating excitement in your market, then the checks you're going to write are going to shrink because you'll be dropping your prices to compensate. And we're going to show you how that doesn't have to be the case. So how do you know if you should be spending time here with me now? Well, it'll depend on your answers to the stick around and the right place questions that you're reading now. There are 6 of them, so take a moment and have a look. But there are also 2 other points on this page. People who have a less than 80% match between what they think their product does and what its value is, and what their customers think it does and what its value is, there's a problem here, and it requires a bit of pondering. For example, if I asked you, what's your product, what does it do, and what's its value, and you answered, it's a green widget, it costs $2.99 and it reduces vibrations, that tells me something. If I asked your customer the same question and they responded with, it's one of the few green widgets we can buy at any price that's manufactured to the tolerances that we need to allow our product to stand out in the market, that also tells me something. So, do you reckon that in the example we've just used, there's an 80% overlap in what's perceived as value? No, me neither. So, even if you're one of those companies that has a 95% match, that extra 5% can be worth an absolute fortune to you and your customer. So, I've got a question for you. Who should probably leave now and go and spend their time doing other things? Well, if you don't want to run a business that you want to improve, that's a good reason. Or if you haven't sold anything yet, there are probably better places to be. Or if you're one of those arms folded across the chest, heavy skeptic critics who hang on to opinions and beliefs and don't entertain the notion of becoming teachable, well, this isn't for you. I have a finite number of heartbeats left, and I prefer to spend them in the company of people who love learning new ways to do things and have fun doing it. And finally, if you're setting the world on fire and having a blast, then get back out there and let it rip. Now, in case anyone has missed it, there's a global event taking place right now, and it's upset the economies and social structures of every nation on the planet. But as we all know, that massive upheaval and change brings both risk and opportunity, and part of our purpose is to help clients reduce the risk to their business while increasing the opportunities. And you do that by strengthening your messaging and seeing how to relate the true value that you bring to your customers. When you know how to do that, you automatically create opportunity because your business will stand out from those businesses that don't know how to do what you're going to learn here. And there's one thing that is certain, and that is the world and the way that it does business is changing. And if you can't explain your value to your customers in a language that requires them, that you don't have to translate it, then they're going to go away and buy from people who can. Now, our core concept is that businesses get stuck in that vendor trap, not because they don't know how to build great products or identify markets, but because they don't translate what their product does and the value that it brings into language and examples that excites and delights their customers. Now, after dropping out of college, I had a blast at trying all sorts of jobs. I was a professional golfer, a very bad golfer, and then I swept up animal parts in an abattoir, and then I was a truck driver, a session musician, a digger of holes in roads. Then somehow I ended up in the IT business. I operated IBM mainframes in a bank, and then I taught myself to be a computer programmer, and then I became a computer operations manager in a manufacturing company. And then in 1981, I had my big break, and I landed myself a job as a sales trainee at Hewlett-Packard. And that was the beginning of a 30-year adventure in a high-tech sales business with some amazing companies, and what a blast it was. When I left corporate land, I took a year out to learn a bunch of stuff that I'd always been interested in, and to do some of the stuff on my bucket list. I went through the whole NLP training bandwagon, and I trained with one of the founders of NLP, John Grinder. I trained as a hypnotherapist to satisfy a curiosity I had since I was a kid. And hypnotherapy was interesting, but it didn't deliver the pizzazz thing, so I hung out with stage hypnotists. I wanted to see what protocols they used with people and to understand a bit more how people respond to things. I wanted to know how it worked. I took all that input and I started my own performance coaching business. And for the last 10 years, I've worked with some of the world's leading sportsmen, musicians, people in medicine, and businessmen. There's actually a journey within a journey here. When I was working for corporates, I had the benefit of amazing training delivered by companies that really knew what they were doing. And my career blossomed. I went from abject failure to success and then on to, well, big success. I was having a ball, earning well, and yet I knew that something was missing. There were deals that I won that I didn't think I would, and I lost deals that I should have won, but I didn't know why. So what was going on? What was really going on in selling? I didn't find it in books or in courses, and nobody I spoke to knew either. They usually said something like, Ross, that's just the mystery of selling, and that's just the way it is. Just the way it is? Well, that's the wrong answer. So I decided to work it out for myself. I spoke to all sorts of people about how they communicated their ideas to clients and colleagues. Lawyers, therapists, psychologists, doctors, business people, teachers, and even representatives of the religious trade. And what they told me about how they dealt with resistant people was fascinating, and it all followed a pattern. So I started to apply what I had learned from these people to my own situation, to my own wins and losses. Now, it took me a little while, but I learned to trust what I'd learned. And a little bit longer after that to actually apply it in the real world. But as soon as I did, I started to see the rewards. Everything about my sales performance improved. My win rate, my margin goals, my forecasting, but the best bit was the change in my relationship with my customers. The old them versus us thing disappeared, and a new level of trust and engagement began to appear. I graduated from salesperson to trusted advisor. Now, I got a lot of questions from colleagues about what magic potion I'd bought and what sort of liqueurs I was drinking, but of course it was a lot simpler than that. My colleagues asked me for help, and they got it, and it worked for them too. Later on, I was asked to take on a new job, and that carried an annual sales quota of $1.3 billion. So something was working. And then 2 years later, I had a new mission. My mission was to take what I'd learned and make it available to the world. And I did. I started my performance coaching business. And now I have a new mission. And that's to take my 10 years of performance coaching experience and my decades of international corporate sales experience and share the simple fundamentals with people like you who want to win business the easy way, the way that works again and again. All of this brings us nicely to this point, the point where I ask you if you're ready to learn how to create and deliver a sales proposition that will make your business stand out from the competition. You could have a new proposition in 30 days, and you could see your profitability go up by up to 400%. And you'll do it by using the same strategies that I've used to sell more than $2 billion in career sales. Does that sound interesting? I'd like to walk you through our process. There are 7 stages to it. And as we go through each stage, I'm hoping there's something that you can take away and start to apply to your business straight away. It's our way of saying thank you for the time that you're spending with us here right now. Stage 1 is gain an understanding of how humans create their experience. Now, this is not a self-help module. You don't need it, and neither do I. But what we both need is to know how to show up and an understanding of how we and others create our own experience of the world around us. Let me talk a bit about showing up. Whilst making an entrance in supremely polished shoes with your hair sculpted to perfection, wearing fancy and fashionable togs is technically showing up, it's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is showing up in capital letters. And showing up in capital letters is about being fully present and available to the people around you. It means that others are the star of the show, and your role is to be an enabler of their brilliance. Believe me, if you don't take anything away from this presentation, please take that bit. You'll thank me for it later, and so will your customers. Knowing how you make sense of the world is a game changer. When you live in a world where you hear yourself saying stuff like, oh, I'll be much happier when our sales improve, or, you know, that guy over there, he makes me so agitated, he really gets on my nerves, or, oh, my bank statements make my stomach churning. Why, if you're saying stuff like that, you're living in the world of I'll be happy when, and I'll be happy when can be found in the same place as places like Jumanji, Narnia, and Oz. In the imagination. They don't exist. Bank statements can't make your stomach turn. That person over there, they can't make you agitated, and sales can't make you happy. It simply isn't possible for those things to generate those feelings, not even in the quantum world. I'll show you how it works when you start the program. But in the meantime, just be willing to ponder the notion that circumstances have no power to create emotion. When you lose sight of how it actually works, it's tempting to look outside for answers. Self-help books, mindfulness, whatever that is, yoga, mantras, videos, they're blind alleys. How many books have been written on how and where to find happiness? Gazillions. Have they ever worked? No, never. And that's where the frustration and searching come in. They're the natural result of looking outside for something that can't be found out there. When you get back to the simple basics of how it works, you can forget about all that other stuff. Just stick with the simple principles that I'll share with you. And when you know the simple basics, you can make decisions and choices that simply weren't available to you before. It's a fantastic place to be. The second stage is easy. Be willing to accept that there's a system for your business and for you within that system. When you've done that, you'll need to keep the system simple and avoid unnecessary frills and affectations. You'll need to commit to the system you're creating for your business, and you'll need to be aware of and willing to accept the costs of the changes you're going to make. The reasons for stating the simple points on the previous slide are that if you only pay lip service to making changes, if you're only partially committed to the process, then your results won't be impressive. They'll just be more of the same. And what's the point of that? When you buy into a new idea, then go for it. It's full speed. You don't have to throw anything away. You re-engineer, you recycle, and you integrate with the new. Committing to and implementing change is exciting and it's fun. It leads to fresh thinking, and fresh thinking leads to new ideas. When you evaluate your definition of your product and what it does and compare that to your customer's definition, you open up a brand new channel of communication. When you're able to detach yourself emotionally from what you make and sell, you free yourself of an unnecessary burden. I often see business owners who are so passionate and in love with what they've created that they strangle their business baby thing before it's had a chance to get out of nappies. There's simply no need for this. It's not understandable. It's not justifiable. It's just dumb. The thing that you invented or created is just a thing. It's just stuff. It doesn't matter what you think of it, and it doesn't matter how much you love it or how proud you are of it. It's just stuff. Until something happens to make it more than just stuff, and that's what this part of the process is all about. We start by defining what you mean by product. Then explain what you think it is, and then what it does. And when you've done that, you ask your customers what they think your product does. Are they doing things with it that surprise you? You might find their answers illuminating. Then you go through the same process with value. What do you think it is? What does the customer think it is? Now, notice the language that you use to describe your product and what it does. What verbs and adjectives do you use when talking about your product and what it does? And be honest. Ask yourself if the language you're using when selling your product is an accurate representation of what your customers experience for themselves when using your product. When you can do this, you'll be in a great place to drop all the defensive posturing that many businesses go through so they don't have to make changes. You can get rid of the inertia that keeps you stuck where you are. That is, getting the same old results. Using your customers' input as part of your development process is a fantastic way to strengthen the relationship between your customer and gain new insights into their business. When you work together like this, you'll be in possession of information and knowledge that your competitors won't have access to. And guess what that leads to? When you've got the feedback from your customers and you've matched it against your initial perceptions, you get a chance to realign your relationship with your business baby thing. It's okay for it to be a bit ugly because you realize it's just a thing that can be made beautiful with the right attention, but it will be a beautiful thing and not a baby. So that means you're free to make the changes and not take it personally. You can do it with the help of your new best friend forever, your customer. Being stuck in an unhealthy relationship with a baby business thing is expensive because the tiny changes made wearing your parent hat end up costing you more than the incremental revenue that the changes generate. So when you create your new relationship with what you make and sell, you have far more flexibility and options. You'll be getting regular feedback from your customers. They'll be telling you what they need in advance of needing it. So when it comes to upgrade and purchase time in the future, who's going to be in the best position for the business? The fifth stage is where you reconstruct your offer. This is where your business baby thing or your stuff comes to life. When you're able to map the value of whatever you sell into the language that your customers can absorb right away, you're perceived differently. When you can take your customer on a journey beyond the immediate solution to the next step of their voyage, you're beginning to create a niche for yourself. When you do that, price isn't the issue that it once was, and the number of people competing with you diminishes. Once you've succeeded in one niche, you simply repeat the process and go and create another one. So, what will you notice when you've completed stage 5? Well, you won't have to take part in the traditional vendor game of dropping your pants when the customer utters the words, "Well, your competitors are cheaper." Why? Because you'll have taken the customer on a journey beyond the immediate solution to the next step in their voyage. When they start to share that kind of information with you, you'll have the evidence that you need that your new proposition is compelling. Sure, they'll always want to be seen to be getting value, and that's okay, but your margins will still be strong. Stage 6, language. The human relationship with language is an amazing thing. Just like the smells and sounds and flavors, words can conjure up all sorts of emotional and physiological responses in people. So we're going to cover how to use language that's specific to your proposition. You're going to learn the basic structure of storytelling so you can put the customer at the center of the story and take them to their happy ending. You're going to find out how to use language to determine how people make decisions. We'll cover the concept of maps and territories, and we'll learn how to use them to bring people closer together and diffuse some of those difficult situations that arise. And then we're going to explore the hypnotist's vocabulary to guide, motivate, and influence. When we're exploring the language to use in creating your value proposition, we're going to leave features and benefits and specs behind and do it a different way. Why? Because features, specifications, and benefits are boring. Everyone beats those things to death. Customers get bludgeoned into a coma from being bombarded by that stuff. Instead, you're going to talk about outcomes of outcomes. Outcomes of outcomes are what the customer does with the results of successfully using the thing that you're hoping to sell them. Think of it like a holiday. When you buy a holiday, you remember those? What you actually purchase are vouchers. You get vouchers to go to an airport, vouchers to check in, wait in a security line, get scanned and told to take your shoes off, get on a big metal tube with hundreds of other people and fly in the sky for hours. You get vouchers to wait for your bags, find one missing, and then get a coach or car to where you're going next. You get vouchers to stay in a place and eat and sleep. That's what you paid for. That's the outcome. The outcome of the outcome is the experience you're hoping to have, the thing that becomes possible as a result of the previous stage. In this example, would you have bought the holiday purely on the basis of the outcome? I hope not. Every customer is different, so it's useful to know how to adapt your engagement to suit their needs and preferences. You don't want to have them translate your message into their language. Do it for them. That's where we'll use maps and territories. When you know how to do this, you can engage with difficult people much more easily and regain control of situations before they become troublesome. And it's a really easy way to build rapport and trust with people. Cue the eerie music and the swinging pocket watch. Hypnotic protocols are simply methods to guide a conversation from a place where there may be resistance to a place where an appropriate degree of trust and willingness exists so that change can take place. There is nothing underhand or spooky about it. It's a natural tool used by all great communicators. So instead of leading your customers into a trance-like state with your mind-numbing barrage of acronyms and buzzwords, you're going to use simple, well-chosen language that helps them to create an experience of what it will be like once they become your customer. When you know how to do this in business, and you already do it with your family, your customers become engaged and curious about what you have to offer. You become interesting. If ever there was an overblown and misunderstood part of selling, it's the closing stage. We're going to show you that it's a natural and necessary part of any sales conversation. And we're going to dispel the myths and nonsense about it. When closing is misunderstood and believed to be a separate thing or process, then it can become stressful. If it doesn't go well and you get a no, what do? Oh, what happened? Can you feel the tension between you and the customer? Put into its proper place and perspective, closing is simple and it's easy because you've already done the hard work. Your customer is going to welcome the close as well because it brings a comfortable resolution to a productive conversation. That's easy enough, isn't it? Oh, by the way, that last bit, that was a close. Let's do a quick recap. When you know how you're wired up and how you make sense of things, your levels of sustainable performance and well-being increase. Now, that makes sense. But the multiplier kicks in when you realize that everybody else works the same way, and you use that to your advantage. When you really understand how to create a sense of value in your customer, when you can construct a story for your customer using that value that has them at the center as the hero, and when you can take that hero to the outcome of the outcome using language that motivates them towards action, when you can do those things, then you will transform your business and you will transform yourself. Can you see how it all works now? But after all that, let's start with something simple. And that step is showing up. If you show up with a commitment to mastering 7 simple stages, then you can expect to achieve remarkable results. How could you not? So take a moment and ask yourself this question and speak the answers out loud to yourself. And the question is, if I committed to learning how to do the 7 things and using them in my business, how would I know I'd done a good job? What would I see? Did you hear what you just said? What does that tell you? So what can you do now? What are your options? Well, the lure of becoming an expert in every field can be tempting. You invest in books and videos and courses and journals, and you spend a lot of money and even more time learning things that aren't your job. But you don't have to do it that way. It doesn't make sense. Often, when you wanted to create a new sales message for your business, you would use the old trial and error method. You'd make minor modifications to the things you do already, and then you see what happens. And then you do it again and again, and you get the same results with minor modifications, and basically you just have wasted a load of time for very little return. So here's what to do instead. Simply take the tried and tested methods we've refined over the years to get results from day one. You'll learn how to create a world-class value proposition that reflects the uniqueness of what you do using the Value Mentor system. We've invested the money and the time in intellectual capital and then gone to market at the highest levels and tested these methods. Everything you need to take the product you've got, the value it brings, and the message you use are brought together into a repeatable sales machine. It makes absolute sense to use what works and be coached by somebody who's done it. We did the research, the reading, the testing, so you don't have to. How many years will this save you? Bring your value proposition alive without wasting time on stuff that doesn't work. We'll show you how to shorten the learning cycle and the rollout of the most compelling value proposition ever. Can you see how easy that is? When bringing changes to sales strategy, many businesses would imitate what competitors are doing. When you wanted to work out how to make your product stand out from the rest, you might have considered hiring a consultant. But now you can simply choose to work with Value Mentor using the methods that have delivered results for some of the biggest names in the world. Work with a resource that's delivered sales success for 30 years, that focus on the uniqueness of your business to develop a proposition that only you can deliver. Once you have the skills, they're yours forever, and they can be applied to any product or service. Nowadays, buyers are more discerning, so you have to create a story for your customer that can only come from you using a proven structure that works. A story unique to them that drives them to become your customer, to sell them on their outcome of outcome, without spinning your competitors' material to map what you think you do. That just doesn't make sense. So let's bring ourselves back to who I want to talk to about this. Who is this program aimed at? The Value Mentor program is for founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs who want to generate the most valuable and compelling value proposition and transform the business status from vendor to trusted advisor. Now, here's what's going to happen when you work with us. You'll be able to close deals that right now you can't win. Why? Because you'll have an irresistible value proposition. And your proposition will be used by everyone in your business that goes remotely near a customer. You will have a consistent message that you all use. And you'll be using the same techniques and methods that closed more than $1 billion in business-to-business sales. You'll claim back days per month by ditching unproductive sales calls. You can get rid of those ghost deals that make up 25 of your pipeline. You know the ones I'm talking about. You know how I know about that? It's because I'm the master at creating ghost deals in a pipeline. I did that for a long time until I didn't have to. You can forget about the pointless meetings, pointless demos, endless pitch decks, and drawn out calls that don't go anywhere. Just focus on the meetings that matter. You'll feel at ease. You'll feel confident and purposeful because you've created a clear, well-defined target and you've got the know-how to achieve it. The Value Mentor program is modular, and I'll break it down into its sections for you here now. And the first module is how it works. Before, when performance depended on being in the right frame of mind or the right circumstances being present, and you got loads of luck coming your way, it just seemed that it all depended on circumstances. Your emotions were dictated by circumstances. In effect, you were owned by circumstances. And the lack of clarity that often presents itself as seeking, always searching for something to make it better, is an exhausting process. But now you can free yourself from that misunderstanding by becoming aware of how you and others actually create your experience of the life that you're leading and gain a freedom to perform well and succeed regardless of whether you feel like it or not. It's simple. It doesn't take any work and it lasts a lifetime. You'll find that the clarity that you need to be successful in business is only ever one thought away. You'll surprise yourself when you find that it applies to all aspects of your life. You take it home and use it with your kids. Our coaching shows that it's simple, easy to implement, and it's really the only basis for lasting change. The second module is decisions you have to make. When you started a business or took over running a business, it kind of was assumed that you automatically became this entrepreneur thing. And really all you needed was a good product that you happened to love a lot. But that was never true, right? And when you get caught up in this one, you avoid addressing all the hard questions about your business because of fear and inaction. But now you can define your role and responsibilities by considering your relationship with your business and make appropriate decisions to support your aspirations. In the first part of this module, you'll get coached through a simple 4-step guide that finally enables you to commit to change. Now, in the past, if you wanted to develop new skills to move into a new market, you'd have to spend a fortune in time and money to learn what you needed to know. But you don't have to do that now either. In the second part of decisions you have to make, you can use my investment in training, my investment in reading, experimentation, failure, gaining experience, and delivering results for the fraction of the time and the cost, and then minimize the frustration, failure, and wasted opportunities. The process allows you to free yourself from emotional attachment to your product, and this presents you with more opportunities to sell and thus increase your turnover. I've spent the time reading the books, going on the courses, and then actually going to market. Use what works from somebody who's actually done it. That's the smart move. Next comes the Big Think Blueprint. When businesses wanted to improve their selling techniques, like we said, they use the trial and error method, and inevitably they get tiny little incremental sales or it just doesn't work. And the small scale changes, well, they're just not worth it. Using the Blueprint module of the Accelerator program, you can shorten your learning cycle at the front end and start focusing on a winning proposition, and everything you need is in one place. When you start to view your product as a customer would, you begin to understand the scale of change necessary to gain the first mover advantage for your new opportunities. I thought I'd pop this in here to show you that I've actually done this stuff. These are my numbers for the end of 2008, after 1 year in the big job. Metrics 1 and 3 were my responsibility, and metric 2 is a rolled up pan-European number that, even though I got paid on it and was impacted by it, I really didn't have any influence or input into what other parts of the business were doing. Now, I mention that because it looks like I missed my number that year, but I didn't. I was 101.6% for the year. I don't know who put that extra 1 cent in there either. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention it. The Blueprint module part 2. When folks want to create a value proposition, they look at all the great features of their product, and then they try to work out a value for them, and then they make up whatever form of words seems to work to sell it. And then you might use some price reductions, special offers, repackaging, and all that to encourage sales. And then when the business wanted to streamline its sales message, I've seen people go and hire consultants in, and then what they'd have to do is spend a load of time teaching the consultants their business, and that doesn't work. But now, you're working with us, you can create a world-class proposition yourself. It comes alive for your customers and drives high-margin sales without competing on price. The second part of the module along the coaching will show you how to focus on the uniques of your business to deliver a proposition that only you can deliver. Once you've got the skills, they're yours. Learn everything that you need to take the product you have, the value it brings, and the message you use to sell it, bring them together into a repeatable and efficient sales machine. This is where the fun really begins. The next module in the blueprint is the communication, language, and storytelling module. Now, it's likely that the outcome you were looking for in the past was simply a sale, and the customer's outcome was simply to buy something they needed for a task. This is transactional commodity selling, where your business is regarded as a vendor. And what is a vendor? A vendor is a non-strategic, interchangeable suppliers. Vendors sell on features and benefits and specifications. But now you're going to engage in what we call outcome conversations. This is where they share what they will do with the results of what your product does. They'll describe what becomes possible that wasn't before. And getting the client to create their own experience of what things will be like when they become your customer changes everything, including the perception of the value of your product and you as a supplier. This is where your vendor caterpillar transforms itself into the trusted advisor butterfly. This next module is all about storytelling. Before sales you adopt a very similar style of content and delivery to your customers. That's the way it appears to me. Buyers are more discerning now, and if your presentation doesn't stand out to them as clearly aimed at them and their aspirations, it's likely to get lost. If you don't use stories, then all you do is all you've got is marketing collateral and generic case studies to validate a proposition. With critical buyers, you have to create a story for them that can only come from you using a structure that works. A story with them as the hero that drives them to become your customer. Being absolutely clear about how you can do this for your customer inspires confidence, and confidence and trust leads to sales. Next comes communication. Communication is such an exciting topic. There are so many fun and interesting ways of interacting with people, and in this module we get to apply some great stuff to business. Now, before, if somebody asks you, so what do you do? What does your business do? And you go, we make the fastest widgets in Kansas, and we're the fastest growing company in our segment. And that person that asked that, if they had any sense, they would run away from you very quickly. You're using sterile corporate language in an effort to make the product sound desirable or impressive, and it's not. Now you'll be able to craft a succinct and compelling message that prompts your questioner to go, ooh, how do you do that? Learn how to use simple, direct, and clear language to get your message understood the first time with no ambiguity. Your customers will know exactly what you can do for them and how they can use it in their business and the value that it brings. The second part of the module is how people make decisions and how they construct the maps they use to navigate through the world. Now, in the past, when you were dealing with customers with really strongly held views and difficult personalities, some of these people were almost impossible to sell to. Having to work out just how they made decisions was a mystery. And now, we often fall into the trap of using language that, whilst it makes sense to us, we make the assumption that it'll make sense to somebody else. That's not a good thing, that. But now, you can use simple models to work around each obstructive view and gain an insight into how each customer makes any given decision, so that you can then determine the most effective way of working for them, or working with them, rather. Learning how customers create maps of their business and their life lets you tailor bespoke messaging for each customer and maintaining the integrity of your proposition. You become easy to do business with, and you form a strong relationship with your client. The language module explores ways that we can use everyday words and phrases that encourage people to actually process what you're saying. Now, in the past, we all have used standard English to communicate and explain what it is we do and what our product can do for people. And often we probably lapsed into trying to sound clever using jargon and buzzwords. But using the program, you'll be able to use the richness of the language to construct messages that encourage action, shift perspective, and encourage the listener to go inside themselves and create an experience of what they're hearing and seeing. That experience will be associated with you and your product. Customers become engaged, they become interested, and they become curious about what you have to offer. You become interesting to them, and they're intrigued about the experience that they're having of you and what it is you sell. Now we get on to closing. That much misunderstood part of the sales process, and the bit that seems to cause a lot of anxiety for people that don't know what it is. Now, there used to be a belief held that by many that closing in sales was the pinnacle of sales excellence, a mysterious skill mastered by very few and the hallmark of the top-flight sales professional. They treated closing as a separate process, and they use it inappropriately. But now you'll see that the close is as natural and necessary as any other part of the conversation. It's simply the mutual agreement to proceed with the process of exchanging value in the form of goods, services, or other thing that's being sold in return for payment of some kind. It presents itself organically when you've completed the process correctly, and customers welcome it as much as you do. It brings closure and resolution to a collaborative agreement. It's a little bit like music. There's a thing at the end of hymns called the plagal cadence, and it's the bit that goes da, 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 da. It creates a little bit of tension and then it resolves. Closing is like the plagal cadence, just like selling. Do I have a coach? Of course I do. Left to my own devices, I'd fritter away hours every day just messing with gadgets and being attracted to shiny things and making those ooh, ooh, ooh noises like a small child entranced by a new discovery. I know that I need structure in order to get the most out of my day and to generate the business and the income that my company needs to grow and create new content. My coach isn't my friend, although I like him. I'm not paying him to be my friend. I'm paying him to tell me the things I need to hear that other people won't because they're too nice. My coach has a lot of experience and knows how to deal with people like me, and he holds me accountable for the commitments that I make to myself. As you'll find, BS is not an effective tool with a good coach. So let's be clear. Coaching for you and your business is not an expensive luxury or affectation. There's nothing wrong with talking to colleagues, friends, and family as long as you remember that unless they're actual coaches themselves, then they're not coaching you. They're kind of giving you nice advice. They may be offering counsel, but good coaching often isn't cuddly, and it's not worried about your reaction to what's being offered. Working with an experienced coach who will hold you accountable to the commitments that you made to yourself is a rewarding and enlightening experience. Coaching is not a luxury. It's an investment in yourself, in your business, and those around you, and it will pay for itself again and again. Now, when you're being coached by us, the skills and knowledge that you acquire are yours for a lifetime and yours to pass on to your colleagues and your family. I said at the beginning that there are 7 key phases to our program, and this is showing you how the phases are mapped onto the modules that we've covered. The learning modules are wrapped up in coaching. Coaching is a key aspect of this. If we decide together, you'll have access to everything I know about sales and business. Now we come to the summary of what we have to offer you. I'll admit right away, when I get to this bit in most internet pitches and justifications, I usually go and say something like, yeah, right, like it's really worth that. But here I am. I'm doing it too. So what's the difference? Well, what you see here are the prices I actually charge for delivering these as separate courses. If you bought each individually over time, then this is what you'd pay. The total of value of all this, if bought separately, is £76,000. Is it worth it at £76,000? It sure is. I've done my 10,000 hours of learning and developing this material. And actually, if we look at the time I've spent working and learning my trade, it's a lot more than that. Now, I estimate that excluding vacations and public holidays and weekends and illness, I've worked over 10,000 days. And if we assume that I've been really, really lazy and only worked 3 hours a day, then I've clocked up more than 30,000 hours. But let's stick to 10,000 hours. If I build my time in acquiring this knowledge at the UK minimum hourly wage, £76,000 is a bargain. But that's not what you're going to pay. You'll find out what you're going to pay when we have a conversation. I know you don't need to work out how long it would take you to learn this material on your own and what the opportunity cost for it would be, but it's going to be a lot, isn't it? Is there a catch? Yes, there is. And the catch is that we're only going to take on 10 new customers in the first intake. I'm opening this offer up because I really enjoy seeing people succeed, and I want to make it available to a wider audience than I can in pure one-on-one work. And we're living in unusual times, and I want to make a difference to as many people as I can with the knowledge that I've gained over my life. So, why only 10 new customers? Because we're in a startup phase. And you'll know that the most valuable asset a new enterprise can have is a list of testimonials from really happy customers. I want to make sure that you become a testimonial. I want you to become an advocate and part of our product development process, just like I've been suggesting to you during the course of this presentation. If you're an early adopter, you're going to receive a lot more personal one-on-one attention, more in-depth coaching, and more time to work through your aspirations and your goals and your propositions. I really hope that you can see what a great opportunity this is for both of us. So have a think about that. It wouldn't be an offer without a bonus. And as a bonus, each of the 10 early adopters will get the additional performance coaching module and personal sessions on top of the walkthrough of the Value Mentor framework. And just as a reminder, this bonus is only available to the first 10 adopters. Guarantees. Yeehaw, guarantees. In a normal one-to-one coaching engagement, if a client asks me, "Is there a guarantee to this, Ross?" I tell them, "Yeah, there is." You give me your guarantee that you'll show up, really show up, honor your commitments to yourself, and do the things that you agree that you're supposed to do. That's the guarantee. And that's as true here as well, but it does have a twist. We've got a full effort-based guarantee. If you work through the course and the coaching and having fulfilled your commitments, if you feel that you've gained absolutely no value, then we'll refund your money. That's fair enough, isn't it? Let's do a Q&A. Well, I really hope you've got some questions, because if you don't, then I'm amazed that you're still here. So here's the first one. Do I need this? No, you don't. You don't need it. It's not essential for your well-being. Maslow has you well covered for the things that you actually need. You don't know what Maslow is? Go and look it up. So now that we've established that you don't need it, let's rephrase the question. Does my business need it? And I would probably respond to that with a question of my own, which is, why are you here? If you're here because you're curious or because you've got some questions, that's fine. As to whether your business needs it or not, if you're asking this, the answer is probably yes. Yes, it does. But you kind of knew that anyway, didn't you? But if you can honestly answer yes to the following questions, then maybe not. When new prospects meet you for the first time, are they excited to arrange the next conversation? Does your sales force always meet the decision maker or the economic buyer, the person that signs the checks? Do your customers share their business strategy with you? Can your customers describe the value of what it is they buy from you in financial and strategic terms? Are you able to claim that price is rarely an issue in the business that you compete for? So, how did you get on? Does your business need this? I can't afford it. Do you know what? That might be true. And we don't want you to invest money or time that you simply cannot afford. Maybe better off to wait until you can. I'm a coach, and I often ask myself, why do I keep paying this guy? After all, I should know about all this stuff. But here's the thing. I've tried lots of times to save money on things I probably don't need anymore. But I found out really quickly that my decision was costing me more than I was saving. Just because I know these things doesn't mean I do them. Coaching is a business. Training is a business. Producing goods is a business. Everyone in business is doing things they'd be better off not doing and avoiding doing things they know they should. That's where the content and discipline of our program can help businesses. We show them the things that will get them where they want to be and hold them accountable for what they do. You see, I don't fire my coach anymore. Do you know why? I can't afford it. I don't have time for this. Right, I'll call this one out straight away. Yes, you do. Unless your calendar is full to the brim with qualified sales calls, closing calls, thank you for the business calls, let me take you on a round of golf calls, or your voicemail is apologizing you for being away on yet another exotic vacation with your trophy significant other, then you have the time. There will be plenty of slots in your diary currently filled with stuff that isn't helping your business thrive and grow, and it should be done by somebody else or not done at all. So do you have the time? Yes, you do. I don't trust you. Quite right, too. You shouldn't trust anyone you haven't looked into with your hard-earned money. I don't trust strangers either, but I do invest in people I haven't met personally. Before I proceed, I look into their profile on LinkedIn. I look at their testimonials. If appropriate, I'll ask for a reference call with a client. And I ask to speak with them if it's an investment that I can't afford to write off. I encourage you to do the same. If you decide that you want this, then that's going to happen because we're not taking anybody on board that I haven't personally spoken to. I've been in the industry for a long, long time, and I'm proud of the clients that I've worked with. That's why the fit has to be just right. My reputation is worth a lot more to me than just signing a client that isn't a good fit. If I feel the fit isn't right, we'll both know, and I'll be delighted to refer you to somebody that might be in a better position to help you with what you need. Is that fair enough? I already have a sales methodology. Great. Good for you. It's a fantastic place to start, but of course this isn't about replacing whatever sales method you embrace. Spin, Huthwaite, Powerbase, Miller-Hyman, old school Xerox, they're all excellent. This isn't a sales methodology. It's about using whatever system you prefer to the best effect. You'll find that you get more out of the investment you've already made in sales training when it has something to stick to. And that's what our program does. It provides the solid foundations for whatever it is you choose to place upon it. Hey Ross, what's all this creating experiences mumbo jumbo? Why would I need that? That's a great question. What was it about the phrase that led to the question? Did the phrase confuse you? Did it irritate you? Did it conjure images of new wavy bark chewing and chanting? Did it make you curious? Whatever your reaction was, where did that reaction come from? If your answer was something like, that kind of stuff makes me suspicious, or it bugs me to see that kind of stuff talked about in business, then you don't know how your experience is created. If you think the answer I just gave you to that compounded the issue, then you definitely don't know how your experiences are created. So what do you suppose would become possible if you did know? What does performance coaching have to do with business? In a simple answer, everything. Athletes and artists spend decades acquiring skills so that when the time comes to display them to the world, they can get access to them and use them. The skills are available to them. For elite performers, it's rarely a lack of skill that's the issue. The issue is they can't seem to access the skills they already have when they want to. Business is the same. The question often arises, if I've worked really hard to acquire 100 units of business skill, how come I can only seem to gain access to 50 of them when I need them? It's a performance issue, and that's why we include performance coaching in the program. We're going to talk about the things that can help to achieve world-class performance. First of all, you need an understanding of how experience is created from within you, from the inside out. And the way to do that is to work with somebody who can explain it to you. You need to be absolutely clear on the results that you want and why you want them. This is the personal equivalent of finding your outcome of the outcome. You need to understand the decisions that you have to make. And then you have to hold yourself accountable in conjunction with your coach to the outcomes of the outcomes and your decisions. You need to be willing to ask for guidance on things that come up in life. What goes on outside of business, what happens in business, all of these combine to create your experience. You know, going through years of grind and trial and error, When you look for fixes for feelings and emotions and perceived problems, you go to books and gurus and videos and seminars. You lose sight of the fundamentals of how to be a high-functioning human, and you get stuck in unhelpful thinking and behavior. I've seen people spend months and years spinning their wheels on problems that could have been solved in an instant. And it's exhausting, it's frustrating that if you're messing around with the wrong stuff, the results just don't last. You end up following the wrong route, get caught in the victim trap, circumstance determines everything. Ugh. Revitalize your innate understanding of how it actually works. You become free to change your outlook and get rid of those unhelpful notions that don't aid you. When you know that you can feel however you want about anything, any circumstance, you gain a freedom and a flexibility that simply is not available to people that don't have that. It's a wonderful place to be. Now we come on to this thing called the mind stack. Now this diagram is something that I created. I came up with this idea when I was working with a guy called Darren Clarke, the 2010 British Open golf champion, Ryder Cup captain, Ryder Cup hero, winner of 21 golf tournaments worldwide, and an all-round good egg, Darren is. He's an amazing guy, great company, smart, witty, and he's got a tongue that would peel your skin off from about 20 yards. I love working with Darren. One of our meetings was at the Europa Hotel in Belfast, and over gallons of strong coffee, we were talking about the mystery of performing well on a regular basis. By performance, I mean the ability to take a portion of the skills that you've acquired for a given activity and then apply them to a task to get a result of some kind. And we got chatting about why some people on tour will win and beat people that apparently have far more skill. Now in this diagram, you can see that there are three elements. There's luck, there's this thing called mind, and there's this thing called skill. Excuse me. And they all have different amounts of skill, but the person there with the most amount of skill doesn't win every time. And a person with one of the least amounts of skill wins fairly regularly and performs better than the others. Why is this so? And it turns out that if you have 100 units of skill, but for whatever reason you can only get access to 55 of them, then somebody with 7 units of skill is going to beat you if they get access to 56 units. It's not about the skills you've amassed, it's your ability to access the ones that you worked so hard to acquire. So if you can get 57, then you'll beat the guy with 56, who'll beat the guy who gets access to 55, who in theory has 100. It's about gaining access to units of performance. And this is what performance coaching is all about. Your talent doesn't go anywhere. Your talent doesn't simply disappear because you feel lousy for a day. It doesn't happen that way. What we generally do is we place obstacles in our own path so the talent isn't available. Now, just by way of a wacky example, one of the things that I did with Darren on a particularly challenging day when he wasn't really feeling like it, he just wasn't really interested in playing golf that day. Anywho, we started playing around with a few exercises, and one of the exercises was I asked him to start hitting shots with his eyes closed, and all I wanted him to do was to focus on being supremely balanced throughout the golf swing. And when he was making contact with the ball, the first couple were a bit ropey. And then when he stopped thinking about it and just concentrated on his balance, his units of performance became available to him. And he started striking the ball absolutely magnificently with his eyes closed. In fact, he was hitting it better with his eyes closed than he was with his eyes open. This amazed him. He said, "How is that possible?" The answer is, it was never impossible. The only thing that was happening was you were getting in your own way and blocking access to your units of performance. And that's what we'll be talking about during the coaching portion of the Value Mentor Accelerator program. Chubby Chandler's become a good friend of mine. Chubby is the CEO of International Sports Management, one of the leading golf sports management companies in the world. And he introduced me to Lee Westwood, and I had a fantastic time with Lee. And Milos Karadaglish, what a man. Milos is a virtuoso classical guitar player, best-selling artist, a stunning player. And one of the great joys of my life was being able to work with Milos during a period of injury. And he is now back on the world circuit, wowing audiences with his skill and his brilliance. It means a great deal to me that I'm able to work with people like that and get them the results that they say they want. And it's part of my remit and part of my desire that I'm able to deliver the same level of results to the people that join our program.